You know, Noah, when you were a youngster and your grandma was raising you, she always instinctively viewed you as a special person, a special
Yeah.
kid, to the extent that she told you one time, she said that you could be anybody that you want to be in life. Tell us about that's a powerful belief and it's a powerful statement to put on a young person.
I tell you, my grandmother was amazing from the standpoint of what you just said. She would always say, "You're very special. Great things will happen to you. You know, don't ever think they won't, and don't give up in anything." But she would, for example, she loved Jackie Robinson, what he had done for baseball. And it's funny, her boys played baseball, which were my uncles. They were good players. Uh, those times were the hard times. None of them finished high school. All of them had to go to work. My grandmother had come from Louisiana and Ruston area and Giblin and that area, and brought those kids down on the grandfather with her. But they were big cotton during the time when they first came to Texas, out of the Louisiana area. So my grandmother seemed to know things that were happening or going to happen. I used to say to my sister, "How come my mama knows so much?" And she was just like, she could seem like she could tell you what was going to happen before
What
that.
happened there?
And
A woman's intuition.
I guess, but she was very good at that and convincing, in a convincing style to me. She never ever once spanked me. I mean, she spanked everybody, but she never. All she had to do was talk to me. You know, she. A lot of times she would be the only one that called me Junior. I'm Nolan Richardson Junior. She would always say, "Junior, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do these things." And then she'd go on and tell me why I didn't have to do those things, or why I have to do those things. And I remember one trip going on a baseball, and we were pretty good, and I was always embarrassed because my grandmother, when she came to the game, she would sit behind the dugout and just yell at me all through the hitting process. "Hit that ball! You hit that ball out the park!" I mean, loud, boy. And I used to get so embarrassed. I was 8, 9 years old, but I was a very good baseball player.
Yeah. I know. We're going to talk about it.
And she would yell about that. And one day I had never stricken out, and as a kid, I never struck out. I intentionally struck out. And she was on my case when I got home. "Why didn't you hit that ball?" I said, "Oh, Mama, let me tell you something. You embarrass me when you out there yelling at me." She said, "So I bother you, huh?" I said, "Yes, ma'am, you sure do." She said, "Okay. I'm coming to the baseball game, but I'm on a park in the back with my uncle, all the way in the back of the field. That way you can't even see me. And you better hit that damn ball."
Well, no, you grew up in a predominant Mexican American neighborhood, and some say you were the only black male youngster growing up. Some said there were a couple of you. But what was it like growing up in a social environment where you were a minority within a minority?
Well, when you're growing up as a youngster, and I had two sets of friends. That's the thing that was so wonderful to me, is that in the neighborhood that I lived in, which were basically Mexican American kids, and then across the tracks, which is approximately 2 miles away from the house, you go across the tracks, and there's the black kids in that neighborhood, and that's where I went to school. But yet I didn't live very far from the school that I could have gone to in the Mexican neighborhood, which was my district. Well, the part was that I felt good about is that during the time that I was growing up, I got to the point where my English was really bad when I went to the black side of town, because I spoke with a broken accent, because I spent a lot of time. When I'd go home, then that's where I was. And when I went to school, then I was with the black
So you were you were growing up, you were speaking predominantly Mexican?
Yes, when I was growing up.
Wow.
I mean, because in that neighborhood.
Yeah,
You know,
certainly.
So then, you know, the English would be, for example, as a kid, I would say, "Hey, teacher, can you let me have a glass of water?" See, that's how I heard it.
Yes.
Okay, so I transferred it over and I never forget on my report card, it speaks too little English. They would have list the remarks. It speaks too little English. And she could speak a little Spanish too, see. So, but as I grew up, having the chance to be with those different groups, you know, the hard part was this side of town would play this side in baseball, we'd play football, we'd play basketball. And once in a while, I'd play on the side where I grew up with the black kids, and myself, and all of us. And then these guys over here were mad at me when I got home. You know, like, "Damn, you could have played with us." I said, "Yeah, I'll play with y'all the next time." And so that's how I did it. Sometimes I play with my group, sometimes I play with the other group. So I grew up not having the racism and the prejudice was a little bit different for us because even the Mexicans weren't treated that well. And there was Mexico. Mexico, as I grew up to be older, was just the freedom. You go anywhere, do anything over there.
Because you're right near the border of Mexico and the U.S.
George, I could throw a rock to Mexico from the backyard of my house. You know, that's how close we were to Mexico. So, living in the area that I lived in. And so...
and the city over there was Juarez?
Juarez.
Yes.
So I got a chance to experience the fact that I lived in a neighborhood and I worked across the neighborhood. I never knew it was almost on the other side of town. I never went to the other side of town. That was like going out of town for me.
Going out of the state, going out of town.
Just going out of town. I could go to a different country, but I ain't been across El Paso, you know. So I had, I guess, growing up in that environment, I didn't see what a kid would see that he lived in Alabama, Georgia, or Mississippi at the time, because of the racial differences of the two, you know. And I was involved with both of our races, really.